All right, to start with our actual design, to really dig into some CSS, what we're going to be doing is working kind of from the background to the foreground on elements. So we're going to make kind of multiple passes here, and I think that's something important to keep in mind. Break your web design into chunks and spend time kind of coding out different features as like small chunks instead of trying to do the entire page. So what we're going to be doing is if you look really closely, there's a subtle background pattern on the left and the right. We're essentially going to be applying that to everything, and then moving forward in future videos, we're going to be doing this area, and then fonts, and then styling a button, and so on. So keep that in mind. We're going to break this into chunks. So what we're going to be doing is picking a subtle pattern for our background, just to give some contrast between kind of the main content area and the background. Now this is something that you will need to decide, what you want the page to look like, because you're going to be making decisions around color, and then this background image or background pattern will provide a little bit of a texture and a little bit of interest for your design to make it your own. So this is that kind of first step to make it your own moving forward. Now, so for the subtle patterns, what we're going to be looking at is there's a link on the project to an actual website that's called Subtle Patterns. So these are patterns that are meant to be used in the backgrounds of websites. So you can kind of look through here. There are tons. I'm not going to look through all of them, but the cool thing is you can kind of preview this to see if you like it. You can kind of see it on their web page before you download it. Okay, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time, but you pick out what you want. The cool thing is if you know how to use Photoshop and Illustrator, you can download these and then edit them. You can add color, you can lower the opacity more, you can do lots of stuff with them. So you don't have to just take what it actually is. The one I used is this one. So I'm going to download this, and essentially you just get a zip file, and I'm going to unzip it, and you'll see that you get a folder here, and what we want is this PNG. Now we kind of did this stuff when we downloaded things initially in Web 1. You do this quite a bit with elements that you are going to kind of work with. So we want to use this in our website, so we need to go to our box folder where we actually have all of our website files. So if you remember from Web 1, and if you set it up like I did, I have inside of Box, and I'm using Box Drive. I have a Viscom modules and JOMC 131, and then I have the Viscom web, right? So this is the file. These are the files we're working on. So inside of images, what I want to do is actually just drag and drop. So I actually have this image inside of my images folder on the web. Okay. Now, it's not actually up on the web yet. Inside of brackets, though, if I switch back to brackets, when I go to images, I should see that image that I just downloaded. Now, if you don't see it here, then you probably put it in the wrong place and you need to double check that. But as long as it's showing up here, what we do next will work out just fine. Okay. Now, it's not terribly complex, but it does include some things that we have talked about in Module 1. I'm going to turn on the vertical split again just so we can kind of see both of these moving forward. So inside of our CSS, we have this body with a background color, right? So that's that blue color that we have from the first one. If you kind of look at it, it's this kind of real light blue is what I chose. We're going to change that, and instead of a color, we're going to make it an image. Okay? So what we need to do is we need to change this background color to an image. So we just want to include a background image. So if I highlight this and just type in background, just like we've done in the past, and do image, we don't want image, we want URL. Okay? Now this is going to pop up what we call a relative path, if you remember that from Web Module 1. Okay? So this is going to go find that image that we downloaded. So keep in mind the relative part is relative to the file that we're typing in. So we're typing in this CSS file, the style.css. It's going to go find an images folder and then the pattern that we selected. Now yours is going to be named different, so you need to pay attention to that. So if I do images and I do the image that I've picked and then make sure I put a semicolon at the end, our background image should show up. Okay. Now, big thing to keep in mind, if you didn't download the same image I did, you're going to have to change that to whatever file name it is, right? So make sure you change it to the correct file name. Okay, so let's save this. I'm going to save my index file. And if we test this, we're going to see really not much change, but we should see that background image change to whatever we picked. Okay, you'll notice that the stuff that we did with the sectioning in the previous video, it didn't really do much in terms of look. That's all structural stuff we're going to use later. But now we have this background image that we can use moving forward. Okay. So again, keep in mind, we're going to start from the background and move to the foreground. So we're essentially going to be kind of layering things on top here, on top of the background. Okay, so that's a background image. Next, we're going to kind of move to a background color. So back in brackets, what we need to actually do is think about how we can change the main part of our content area to a background color. Okay, now I'm going to add this kind of at the bottom, and I'm going to add a comment in here just so we can find things easier. Okay, and it's a slash and an asterisk, and we're going to say our main content styles. Okay, this is just going to help us find things later, and you'll notice that you can add some returns here, and so we can separate stuff. Okay, so we need to select this main HTML element. Okay, and this is called an element selector. So think about like what we talked about here. If we select that main element, we want to change the background color to white. And if you remember what we talked about, that's called a hexadecimal. Okay, so we have a hexadecimal there with the white color. Okay, so we save this and we jump back into our preview. We should see a white box start where our picture is and end right after the footer, and you can kind of see a little bit of the image, the background pattern there as well. Okay, so this is going to kind of start to set us up later on, but we needed to add those background elements. So we can add background images, or essentially patterns in this case, and we can add a background color. Okay, now we want these to work together, so this is where your design sense has to kind of kick in. So pick your patterns carefully, make sure it kind of sets a tone that you actually want and you want your page to kind of look like. And then as we select fonts, that's going to kind of be part of the design process as well, like picking those and making sure they work together.